YouTube, what is going on? Welcome back to another Identity 5 video. And in this one, we have the Season 20 Hunter tier list, and I'm probably going to be uploading this around the day of maintenance when Season 20 goes into Season 21, but yeah, that's okay. Anyways, we do have the inclusion of Clerk here, so you guys will be able to see where Clerk is, and also just be able to see what hunters are strong going into Season 21 and what you maybe want to start playing, stuff like that. So without further ado, we have our 5 tiers: B-, B, A+, and S tier. Yeah, essentially the lower B-, B tiers are hunters that can be used kind of later rounds. B- usually not so much in tournament at all, whereas B are probably used more like later, sometimes as specialty hunters later rounds in tournaments. A and A+ are good in can be used in first round, but are more common for second and third. And then S tier, obviously the best hunters in the game that are used most often early rounds in tournament. Also in rank, these are of course are going to go in order, essentially like the best, kind of the weakest rank hunters to the best. And of course all hunters in rank are pretty much viable. You can play pretty much any hunter in rank, but there are going to be some that are obviously better and more consistent than others, and that's going to be determined based off of the different tiers that they're in. So without further ado, let's get into the first tier, which is B-. And the first hunter in B- tier is Wax Artist. Now, a Wax Artist currently for me is the lowest hunter in the game, and there are hunters, there's gonna be, of course, there's gonna be some people who are gonna be like, oh, Wax Artist is strong because of this and that. And of course, Wax Artist is strong and viable, and you can use them in rank. It's just that these other hunters are typically better. But anyway, so Wax Artist is B- tier because the biggest problem with the Wax Artist is kiting wise. It's very easy to break line of sight and dodge the wax. That way, if you have good supporters like good forwards, good entomologists, good priestess portal, stuff like that, it's easy to extend kites against Wax Artists for very long periods of time. So that's kind of thing. Wax Artist's chases just can be very weak sometimes. Without full presence, his camp is also not very strong. Again, you can sometimes force a rescue after half with wax, or maybe get a double hit. Like, for example, you wax someone like 80 or 90%, hit them, they get the rescue, and then you turn around and shoot them and get a wax hit on them again, and then you can maybe get a double hit. Then that can be strong, but then the person also can make a lot of distance that was rescued, and you can get rebound kited. Now, the biggest thing with Wax Artist is full presence camp is actually pretty good, because you have the flame wax, which you can use to injure someone and then get a follow-up hit right after, sort of like a violinist note or a feaster tentacle. And you can potentially stuff a rescue that way, which can be pretty good because it's a no attack recovery hit ability. But it only comes at full presence, and that's what makes him kind of weak, is that you have to get there first. And for the most part, you're going to get kited in the early game, and they're going to be able to have very easy rescues in the early game as well. Now, a cool trick you can do with Wax Artists when chasing someone is if you get them to like 80 or 90% of the wax, hit them, and then when you hit someone, while they have wax on them, the wax doesn't get removed, it stays on. So you hit them and you turn around and shoot them again and then freeze them, and you can get a sort of double hit right away, which can be pretty good, but good survivors will usually be able to play around that. So, Wax Artists can block off ciphers and windows, can control ciphers that way, which is pretty good. But yeah, besides that, Wax Artists doesn't have too much to work with. His chase is not very strong, and that's what makes him a B- tier hunter. The next hunter in B- tier is Ember. Now, Ember, again, the biggest problem with Ember is his early game chase is very weak. His early game chase is very weak. So what happens is, when you do get stunned as a Ember, you do get those flames, which you can use to potentially chase someone. But again, you can easily just transition kite away from them, as long as you, making distance as well. It can be very hard for Ember. Now, Ember can be very fast once he has that hunt ability, because a lot of Embers will bring hunt, and you catch up to survivors that way. But besides that, you can literally just pallet spam Ember. He breaks pallets so slow. And I know it just seems very basic, but that's all you gotta do. Just pallet spam Ember, and they just never can really catch you, and it's very easy to transition kite, and you can just pallet spam, and you kite them that way. Now, the one thing Ember does have for him is he has very strong camp. Because when you have those flames, but you have to have flame. If you don't have your flames available, then the survivor can just get an easy rescue. But if you do have a flame available when they come in for the rescue, you can drop a flame on the you can drop a phantom and hit the survivor. The phantom will get the hit, and you can stuff a rescue that way. And if you have 2 flames, you can give you can give a flame to a puppet, and then drop a phantom as well, and then go for this one. You give sort of like 3 hunters camping at one time. Now, of course, the survivor can tap the puppet, and it disables it for 5 seconds. So that can be a problem. But besides that, Ember's camp is pretty good. And also his late game map pressure can be pretty decent as well, because he has those puppets to have very good mobility to get around the map and stuff like that. So that can be very good as well. in the late game. But again, the biggest problem for Hellenberg, early game chase is very weak, and even second chase target can be very troublesome for Hellenberg. If you're able to get the first down and get someone eliminated, sent out of the game back to the manor, and then you have to chase somebody else, and then you can still get, even then you get kited. Because Hellenberg's full presence sure can help him with chase because you can drop a puppet and close the distance, but for the most part, his presence gives him better map pressure rather than better chase, which with most hunters, presence usually gives better chase, but with Hellenberg, it's not so much. Hellenberg can still get kited even late game as well, and that's kind of the biggest problem with Hellenberg is he just gets kited, and that's what makes him a B- tier hunter. The next hunter in B- tier is Lizard, Evil Reptilian. Now, I usually have him a little bit higher, but I've just really sort of realized that with Lizard, it's just like, he just gets kited so hard in the early game. Good survivors are going to be able to tight kite him. They're going to be able to, when they see the jump, they'll just go back to the other side of a pallet. They won't throw the pallet down. They'll camp the pallet, the Lizard will jump, and then they'll just go back to the other side of the pallet. And it's just so easy to loop and tight kite Lizard. Now, transition kiting against him is not easy, of course, because he can cut that off with his jumps. But the biggest problem is that he just gets tight kited. He just gets tight kited by good survivors. Good support with forward entomologist, priestess, whatever it may be, just destroys him so hard. And he just has a hard time getting an early down. And to be good, for Lizard to be good, you kind of need to have all the traits on the persona web. You have to have confined space, you have to have detention, and then you also really want insolence to help your chase, and you really want trump card, but you just can't afford to bring them. And a lot of Lizards will just go up down with like peepers or something, which means you have no late game, which means that at best you can tie, and at worst you're probably going to lose because you're going to get kited because you don't even have blink, because you need peepers to control ciphers and also have some sort of pressure. And it's just really bad for Lizard. So he gets kited in the early game. Once he has his presence, his camp is actually pretty strong. You can use that lethal crash to stomp a survivor and then just hit them right after. Stuff a rescue. You can also cut someone off from a distance, and then hit them with attack recovery, cut them off from a distance, and jump back to share, do a lethal crash ability, and stuff them that way, which can also be pretty good. So there's some things that that Lizard has going for him that are pretty good. But for the most part, his chase is just not very good. His map pressure is okay because he has those jumps, but he does have an energy bar, which I think should probably be removed. Or at least he gets his energy back a lot quicker because he's already a very weak hunter. But yeah, for the most part, he just gets kited, and that's what makes him a B- tier hunter. The next hunter in B- tier is Nightmare. Now, Nightmare was originally, I think I had him as the worst hunter in the game in one of my previous tier lists, but he's actually, he's not terrible. He's not too bad because, you can get tight kited, you can get looped as Nightmare, but against good survivors. But, he also has the dash, which is pretty good. His full presence is strong. This is, again, very similar to Wax Artist, where full presence is very good. His full presence is very good because you can have the double jump, and you can also put vision on survivors almost instantly, which is very, very strong. His first presence is not as good. I mean, sure, it gives you the teleport ability, which is nice. But in reality, chase is really important because you just get kited. You get your first kite, you get kited as Nightmare. You can get rebound kited because his chase isn't good until you have that full presence. Now, you typically have to bring blink with Nightmare, or else you're just getting kited. So that's kind of the biggest issue with Nightmare is that you can literally pallet spam if you want to, or you can loop him. He just gets kited both ways, which is kind of the downside. He doesn't really have any camp. The only camp he has is if he cuts off somebody from a distance and then teleports back to share with the crow. And he can stuff a rescue that way. Besides that, he has no camp at all. And that's, again, one of the downsides to him is that his chase is just kind of meh early game, and his camp is just really meh. His cyber pressure is pretty good with the crows, and his full presence chase is good, but actually getting there is the biggest thing for him. And that's kind of what makes him a B- tier hunter. The next hunter in B- tier is Ripper. Now, Ripper is also... he actually has decent chase if you can hit the Foggy Blades, but the biggest problem is the Foggy Blade cooldown is kind of long. It's 20 seconds. So as a Ripper player, if you miss your first Foggy Blade, you're already probably just going to tie the match. Because then good survivors are not going to get hit by basic hits with Ripper because his hitbox is very small, and he's not very fast without invisibility, without presence. So at that point, it's just kind of like, well, okay, I missed my Foggy Blade. Now I have to wait for my next one. And then, okay, you hit the next one. And then, okay, you hit the next one after that. You're still tying the game because it's still already a 60-second kite plus rotation. So you already lost the game. Sorry, not lost. You already tied. Now, if you miss 2 Foggies, then it becomes an 80-second kite plus rotation. And then from there, you probably lost the game. You have to hit, to win the game as a Ripper, you have to hit your first 2 Foggies for the most part. And on top of that, you have to, if you miss one, you're probably tying. If you miss 2, you might lose. And even if you hit both Foggies, you're still getting Cypher Rush, so there's a good chance you'll probably still draw. You actually have to hit both Foggies and then stuff a rescue. And to stuff a rescue, you have to cut off a rescue from a distance as Ripper. Because if you don't, you can just Foggy them on the chair. They'll still get the save off. Maybe you can get the double hit, sure, but you're still getting the save off in time because Ripper, he swings once and it takes him a few seconds to swing again, and that's just kind of the problem with Ripper again, is that his chase is fine, but if you miss Foggies, you lose. And then he's just inconsistent. And it's hard to stuff rescues as him as well because the survivor can just get the save even if they get foggied, if they're right next to the chair. And then, I mean, his map, he doesn't really have Cypher control. His only control is that he brings peepers and he's very fast when he has presence. So he can get around the map quickly and drop peepers and then maybe go back to chair. That's kind of his only Cypher control. Now, the good thing with Ripper is that once he has presence, he actually has very good chase. He's invisible and he's very fast. Right, so that's very good. Now, but the problem again with that is that if you vault a window, you force Ripper to lose his invisibility because he has to vault it after you. If it's a God window or a God pallet, he has to lose his ability. Or if you're even something as basic as an Enchantress, anything that can stun, Enchantress, single stun, knocks him out of his invisibility, Prospector, Magnet. These non-meta characters that aren't even that good can kind of counter him, and that's what makes him kind of a B- tier hunter. Okay, so the next and final hunter in B- tier is Clown. Now, the reason why I don't have Clown, I think I originally had Clown a little bit lower in the past, but we have seen Clown very rarely, but sometimes used in IVL, and that's with CHC on X-Rock. And he'll sometimes use Clown in the later rounds as like a specialty option. And typically the specialty hunters will usually be in B tier, but there's usually like special hunters are usually hunters that multiple hunters will pick up, whereas this is like the only Clown player we've ever really seen competitive at all. But basically, Clown is the best character in B- tier. The biggest issue with Clown is that, and I don't want to talk about too much about issues, I want to talk more about strengths because I know you guys like to hear more about strengths, and that's really fun as well. But so what happens with Clown essentially is how the game goes out. Is Clown will spawn into the map. He has to walk all the way over to a Cypher, pick up every part around the Cypher that he needs, like the Infinite Drill, and then you can pick up the Wild Wings, so you have increased dashing speed. And then you can zoom around the map like that. But the problem is it takes a while for Clown to get his setup. Because he spawns in the game, he has to walk to the closest Cypher machine, then find all the parts, then put them on, and then dash around the map. And if you miss your dash as Clown, you crash into something, then you're probably just going to lose the game. Because what happens, if you crash into something other than a survivor, then you lose the game. Because then you have to go back to another Cypher machine, pick up all the parts, and put them back on again. Now, of course, while you're dashing around the map, you can pick up parts as you're dashing. And Clown did get a small buff, which allows him to actually see the parts on the ground, which is pretty useful. Because one of the issues with Clown is sometimes you can literally just not find the parts that you need. So, so that's always nice to have that little buff. But still, in reality, all you have to do to counter Clown is either go to a strong pallet or a strong window. Whereas with something like, compared to something like Breaking Wheel, literally, windows are hard for Breaking Wheel to deal with. But you can use your extended spikes to reach through windows and stuff. Whereas with Clown, you literally have to hit the dash on the survivor before they vault the window or before they vault the pallet. And Clown gets countered by both pallets and windows. So that's the biggest issue with Clown. Now, he does have good mobility once he has that infinite dash on, and also when he has full presence, he dashes a lot faster. So he has good mobility there, and that can be good for him. Now, Clown does also take a lot of skill. You have to have very strong controls and very good game sense to play Clown. Now, I believe they actually have Clown listed as like a level 1 survivor, like in the game, or a hunter in terms of skill, and that's wrong. Clown's like a 3. Clown is really hard to play. You have to have good control. You have to have very good game sense. You got to know when to slug people, when to change targets, stuff like that. So, on top of that, Clown, he has pretty good chase once he reaches the full presence. Again, this is one of those hunters. When you get to full presence, you have really good chase. So that's why Clown typically brings insolence. But again, reaching that full presence is kind of the hard part for Clown. So again, that's why he's kind of B-. And it also, his camping is a bit luck reliant. If you're able to time a Terror Shock with that dash, then that can be really strong. But if you're not able to get that, that can kind of be a problem, and that's kind of the biggest issue with Clown. He doesn't really have much Cypher control either, and that's what makes him a B- tier hunter. He is very strong in Rule Ever Park, though. Okay, moving on to the next tier, which is B tier. The first hunter in B tier is Gamekeeper. Now, Gamekeeper actually has good chase because he has a hook with a really strong hitbox, a really broken hitbox, and he also has those traps he can use to trap survivors. So his chase is actually very strong. And his camp is a little bit luck-based. That's what makes him slightly inconsistent, in that if a survivor gets the chair, you can go for that Terror Shock with the hook. And if you hit it, great. You stuff the rescue and you win games. But again, we talk about a lot how luck-based hunters are less consistent. We talk about how consistency is really important for making up a strong hunter. So Gamekeeper, while he may have good chase, he may have good camp, but it is kind of luck-based. He is pretty strong in those things. The problem is he just has no Cypher control at all. And he gets Cypher Rush very, very hard, and that's one of the reasons why he's sort of a B-tier hunter. There's not really much else to say about Gamekeeper. You can use those traps to block up pallets, which are pretty good if you set them up early game. You can block off Kiter Roots as the game progresses. And yeah, good chase with the broken hitbox and the hook and the traps, and also you can cut off a rescuer from a distance, hit them, and then hook the chair and pull them back and stuff a rescue that way. You can also pull someone back because they get slowed down when they get hooked, so you can force rescues after half. So that's a pretty good thing about Gamekeeper as well. But yeah, because of these things, Gamekeeper is just inconsistent, and he doesn't have any Cypher control. But he does a good chase, so that's what keeps him out of the B- tier range, but because, again, he's inconsistent, has no Cypher control, that makes him a B-tier hunter. The next hunter in B tier is Violinist. Now, I know some of you guys are going to want Violinist to be higher based off of how well we saw, I think it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe it was Pee Cha that played Violinist in Koa. And his Violinist is actually very strong. And you saw that be very good. But again, ultimately he had such a strong start and such a strong game, he still only draw. He actually almost lost because the server almost got dungeon, and that's how bad. That's why Violinist is actually B tier. You could play so perfectly with him and still draw. But yeah, Violinist is not bad. The biggest problem is that he can get kited. You can dodge those notes, force basic hits, and if you force all basic hits against a Violinist, you're simply going to be put in a position where you're just going to get Cypher Rush. You can get hits with attack recovery, but it still doesn't matter. Now, Violinist does have he has a small level of Cypher control in that he can throw the notes to Cypher machines while camping, and it can force the survivor to move off of the Cypher until the notes disappear. But besides that, that's pretty much all he has to control Cyphers. And again, his chase is kind of early game, it's not good. Once you have the presence where you can throw the notes to slow down survivors, then it becomes a little bit stronger. And then once you have that full presence, it becomes very good because you can use the infinite push ability and throw out and extend the notes and get hits that way. Of course, survivors can't stand between the lines to dodge them as well, so that's kind of a problem. But overall, it's not too bad. So once he gets his presence, his chase is pretty good, and his camp is pretty good at full presence. Again, when you're camping without full presence, good survivors can juke the notes pretty easily, but good Violinists can also sometimes hit them. Again, it's kind of luck based on whether or not you can hit that note, but it also there's a degree of skill there as well. So, but yeah, overall, Violinist is just okay. He's an okay tie hunter, right? He has meh chase early game. Once he has presence, he has pretty good chase. He has pretty good chase after his first presence when he can slow down survivors that way. And he counters things like Entomologist when harassing with the bees, because you can just continue to swing and break the bees without stopping in your tracks, which is pretty good. So yeah, Violinist is not bad. He has decent camp with full presence, and he has pretty good chase once he has his first presence as well. And he's just kind of an okay tie hunter, and that's what makes him B tier. The next hunter in B tier is Feaster. Now Feaster is how do I explain Feaster? He's very similar to Violinist. Violinist and Feaster are always right around equal-ish. And Feaster is again, he uses tentacles to block off kiting routes, like blocking off pallets, blocking off windows, whereas Violinist would do the same with his notes. And, so that's a pretty good thing about Feaster. Now, the one thing that Feaster is going from is his charge attack hitbox is very long. And that's what makes him very good. Now, the biggest issue with him, he's a very linear hunter. He doesn't really have a lot of, his main abilities are just use the tentacles, and that's it. With no presence, he uses the tentacles. With his first presence, he still uses the tentacles, right? And with his full presence, he still uses the tentacles. It's like he doesn't really gain anything at all for the most part. It's just you don't gain anything. Once he gets presence, his tentacles recharge faster, and he does have the he does have, or doesn't really charge. It's more that it's not even that they recharge faster. It's more that he gets, when he reaches that full presence, he gets the ability to curse mark someone, and you can throw down multiple tentacles at one time, which is pretty good. I think that's kind of the biggest thing for him. And it's okay. Sorry, let me phrase this. It's not that they recharge faster, but it means that they recharge slowly while not in the vicinity of a survivor. And when you have no presence, they recharge while in the vicinity of a survivor. Okay, so that's. I had a little bit of brain fart there. Sorry. I haven't played Feaster in a good while, but he does have a charge attack hitbox that's very long, which can be very good in some instances. And he does have good camp because you can cut off the rescuer from a distance, and then have a tentacle waiting for them on chair to stuff them that way. And you can also spam multiple tentacles when you have that curse mark on someone. And he does have a little bit of cyber control as well, similar to Violinist, in that when you down a survivor, a tentacle will spawn next to every survivor on the map. So then it, forces them, it takes a few seconds for them to remove the tentacle and go back to decoding, and you can slow down the Cypher Rush kind of a little bit that way. So that's what makes Feaster B tier. Again, he's very similar to Violinist, has okay chase. Once he has full presence, he has better chase, and he has pretty good camp, and a sort of a little bit of Cypher control, and that's what makes him, he just has a better hitbox than Violinist, so that's what makes him a little bit better in that instance. But overall, he's just a B tier hunter. Now, the next hunter in B tier is Percy. Undead. So Percy used to be pretty bad, but he did get a small buff where he can actually move the dungeon. And I think that was kind of game changing, because I remember the first match I played against a Percy after his buff. We literally had 3 survivors up at the exit gate. Someone died on dungeon. We could have won the game, but the Percy moved the dungeon, and we ended up getting a draw. And and Percy's buff actually makes it so survivors can't simply just die on dungeon and get an extra escape that way. Because the main strategy, going against a Percy, is that someone would just simply die on top of the dungeon and you get a free escape that way. But now Percy can actually move the dungeon, and that's pretty good for him. So that's kind of the biggest thing with Percy. You can actually move the dungeon. And again, Percy he does have a strong chase, because he can just walk through pallets while swinging. He can jump over pallets with his Hulk Smash ability. He can break pallets instantly if he has the energy by swinging at them. And he has good chase. The biggest problem with Percy is that you just can't chair people, and you get Cypher Rush because of that. Because while Percy may have people bleed out faster than other hunters, it still takes longer than a chair time. So in reality, it still takes a really long time to kill survivors as Percy, and that's what kind of makes him just B tier, in that he has really good chase, but without chairing, survivors can also just self-rescue by self-healing, right? They can literally just rescue themselves essentially by just healing up, and that's what makes Percy a B tier hunter. So he does have good map pressure. He can meet around the map very quickly. He's very, very good mobility and very good chase. He just doesn't have the quick kills that other hunters can get. So that's and survivors can also self-heal themselves to self-rescue, and so that's what just makes Percy a B tier hunter. The next hunter B tier is Wu Chang. And Wu Chang actually has become slightly stronger when people started to use Blink and Insolence, and that's a pretty good strategy, because, again, the biggest problem with Wu Chang is that you just get kited, right? You just get kited as Wu Chang because he has no real chase abilities in the early game. But if you have Blink and Insolence, it can help yourself get to those, unlock that bell with the black form, and Blink to get free hits that way. And it actually makes it so he can get kills within 60 to 70 seconds, and with his map pressure, he can go for wins or ties from there. So he doesn't have any chase early game, but he does have he doesn't really have chase early game, but he does have Blink Insolence, which is a good combination. And then also, once he has presence, his chase actually becomes very strong. And it's not like full presence with like we've seen some of the hunters. It's first presence. His chase is good because you immediately unlock the bell, which is really good for stopping survivors and getting hits. Now full presence is also very good because you can instantly soul siphon or instantly bell someone, but it's also it's still the first presence is still very strong. Wu Chang Black Form also breaks pallets very fast, and then Wu Chang White Form has a really long hitbox, so there's some upsides as well. And then Wu Chang's map pressure is just very good. You can teleport around the map very easily. He has some of the best map pressure in the entire game. So, and with only a 30-second cooldown on the umbrella, that's pretty good. So that's what makes Wu Chang, a mid B tier hunter, is that it was chase may be bad, and that's the biggest downside to him in the early game is his bad chase. He can still make up for it with Blink Insolence to an extent, and then his camp can also be pretty good in that White Form can Soul Siphon and prevent a rescue that way, or Black Form can cut someone off from a distance, hit them, and then bell them to stuff a rescue that way. So that's what makes Wu Chang B tier, is that he has not so great chase early game, but he has a little bit of he has some ways to make up for it with Insolence and Blink. He has very good map pressure, and then has some pretty good neat camping abilities that can sometimes work, sometimes won't, and that's what makes him a B tier hunter. The next hunter in B tier is Photographer, Joseph the Photo Boy, as we call him. And a lot of you guys I know love Photo, but Photo, again, is just going to stay around B tier. He's never really going to move up unless he gets a buff. And he does probably need a buff, but Photo is a good hunter because he's a good hunt. The good things about Photo, he's not really a good hunter, but the good things about him is that he can kill people without actually having to chase anyone. If you're getting kited as a Photo, you can simply take a photo, go into Photo World, share that person in Photo World, and kill them that way. And if you're able to find them, then that's great. But the biggest problem, again, is that he's a luck-based hunter. If you're able to guess where they go down and find, again, there's no skill in really guessing where they go down. It's really just luck. I'm just going to take a gamble, hope they die here, and they died here, great. When you share them in Photo World, they decided to die over here, and I could share them. Great, so you got really lucky, and you can win the game now because you or probably tie because you're still not able to catch anyone because Photo's chase is very bad, right? So, you know, Photo has ups and downs in that, you know, if you get very lucky with finding survivors as well, if you have a good spawn point, that's very good as Photo. If you're able to find survivors, that's very good as Photo. And if you're able to find the survivor that you killed in Photo World in the real world after Photo World ends, then that's also very good. But again, you have to find them. And that's kind of the biggest downside to him. On top of that, again, Photo's chase is very bad. So even if you're able to like chip someone in Photo World and then blink them for a kill, once they get saved, you can easily just get rebound kited very hard because you don't have blink available. So while Photo does have good Cypher control in that the Photo World will knock down Cypher progress, he just has no camping abilities and no real chasing abilities. He does, of course, make up for it with the Photo World images, damaging people that way, but besides that, it's just not too strong overall. And good survivors can also communicate to make sure when communicate when he's taking a photo so they can hide, and then communicate when he's near someone in Photo World so they'll get jump scared. In rank, he's not bad. The biggest problem with playing him in rank is the matches take so long, so you're going to get less matches as a Photo playing in rank than you are with other hunters. But yeah, overall, he's not too bad. Against a 4-person VC team, it can be very hard to play against. And you actually saw in Koa, there was a Photo player on BZ, UKG, I think is what his name. He played very, very well, and he still lost. And that's just because Photo can struggle. He played a really beautiful Photo game, and he still ended up losing just because Photo can struggle like that against 4-person VC teams. Yeah, but overall, yeah, Photo's not bad, just kind of average B tier. Maybe if he gets a buff, he could definitely move it up. He has a lot of potential. He has one of the most potential out of a lot of hunters, but overall, just currently just a B tier hunter. Now, moving on to the next hunter in B tier, this is the new hunter, Clerk. Now, some people say, I've heard a lot of back and forth with whether or not Clerk's good. Some people say, oh my god, Clerk's so broken. She can do all this weird stuff that we don't know how to play against. And then other people are like, oh my god, Clerk sucks. You know, she just gets kited, and you know, even though she controls ciphers, she's just never killing anyone because she gets kited. And they're kind of both right. I think the biggest thing for people right now is that they haven't really figured out how to play against Clerk. So once survivors figure out how to play against Clerk, it's gonna be pretty easy for them to beat her. But until then, she's going to be pretty strong. But again, once you figure it out, she's going to be pretty easy. The biggest way to counter the biggest thing with Clerk is she gets, well, not only does she get tight kited, she also gets transition kited. I mean, she gets kited in both ways. Now, the one thing you can't really afford to do against Clerk is pallet spam. So we talk about a lot of hunters, oh, pallet spam this hunter, pallet spam this hunter. With Clerk, you actually can't really do that because Clerk can just pick up the pallet and walk through it. Now, the biggest issue with picking up the pallet is that the survivor can then, therefore, reuse it. All right, they can reuse the pallet and go back to it and keep tight kiting. They can keep tight kiting in certain areas and then potentially mind game and get a pallet stun because the pallet's still there. And then also, if you just create enough distance between yourself and the Clerk, it's just bad because the Clerk's just, getting transition kited really, really hard. She also gets support kited with Priestess portals and forward stuns and entomologist bees and all that. So that's the biggest problem with her, is that she just can't get kited. And, that's kind of the biggest issue. She also doesn't really have a lot of camp. In that, you can use the chip abilities, but, survivors can easily dodge those when trying to go for rescue, so it doesn't really do much. She just doesn't really have any camp. Now, she does have good Cypher. Her Cypher control is actually really cool. It's a really unique ability. And how it works is you can essentially use your vision to look at survivors, sort of like a Sculptor or Chisel, but in this case, you can use it to go to Cypher machines instead of certain areas. So you go directly on a Cypher, and then you can essentially put the you can record the survivor's image of them decoding, and then use it to block off the Cypher machine. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I don't completely understand Clerk, but from the people that I've talked to who have been very into playing Clerk and have already gotten top A badge Clerk over the first week with her, they would say Clerks are on B tier. They all say Clerks are on B tier. She's not too strong, but also not too weak, because she has that cool Cypher control. And then once Sarah's had to figure out how to play against her, she might move down a little bit more. But for now, she's just around mid to high B tier. And yeah, she can also, block off windows and block off pallets, which can be pretty good. She can block off the Cypher machines late game, which can also be very strong. So she has some things going for her. The chips you don't really use as much. But yeah, again, with lack of chase early game and lack of camp, good survivors can support kite her very well. She's not going to be a very good tournament hunter. Now, she could be good in rank, but once you have 4-person VC and good support between your teammates, she's not going to be very strong. And that's what makes her high B tier as of right now. Okay, moving on to the next hunter in B tier, that is Mad Eyes. Now, I did move Mad Eyes a little bit because we did see a very good Mad Eyes player in Koa on the Korean team MS. We saw you play Mad Eyes. and played it quite effectively. Actually secured a draw against FPXCQ, one of the best teams in the world, and also got a draw against, I think it was GH, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, so Mad Eyes is actually not bad in that he has good Cypher control. The biggest problem is that it's hard for Mad Eyes to get a kill. What a lot of Mad Eyes will do is they'll usually like bring Hunt and then bring Blink, try to get a free hit with Hunt and then just blink someone for the kill after, or they'll just try to trap someone in with fences. And if you're not well versed as a Survivor team playing against Mad Eyes, you probably will lose because Mad Eyes has a lot of tricks. You have to know how to play against Mad Eyes. You got to know how to not let yourself get trapped, and you have to know how to when to vault fences and take damage and when not to. So there's not much to really say about Mad Eyes besides he's very complicated. It's going to be hard for me to explain because I don't even understand Mad Eyes. And he's been out for this long. I've never really... He's the hardest hunter in the game to play, 100%. He's harder than Clerk. And he's harder than Dream Witch. So with Mad Eyes, basically the idea is to try to kill someone, then use your very strong camp with the consoles to block off the survivors from rescuing with the fences. And then you can also pressure ciphers with the fences. The biggest problem is that survivors can use the consoles and then waste all the energy on the consoles and decode for free. And the Mad Eyes can't really do anything because they wasted all the energy. So that's the biggest downside with Mad Eyes. But on some maps like Ever Sleeping Town, it's very easy to trap in survivors. Maps like Red Church, also very strong, very easy to trap in survivors as well. And he's very map specific. He's weaker on maps like Lakeside and like Arms Factory as well. But he is good on maps like Ever Sleeping Town and Red Church. So very map specific, but on good maps he can definitely thrive and be a scary hunter to go against. But another thing is he also struggles against support characters like Batter, Forward. They can both knock them off his console. Even things like Prospector and Enchantress can be good. Doctor can even be good because she can heal herself the chip hits that he gets on her. Priestess can portal through the fences. So that's what leaves Mad Eyes in B tier, in that there's a lot of counter characters for going against Mad Eyes. It's very easy to hard counter him, but he's still a strong hunter nonetheless. When he's good in rank because you don't know you're going against him and you can take survivors by surprise. But he is very map specific as well. So there's upsides and downsides to him, but overall he's the best hunter in B tier. Okay, moving on to the next tier, which is A tier, and the first character in A tier is Anne. Now, I actually had Anne a little bit lower last tier list, if I'm not mistaken, but we did see Anne get utilized in Koa and be very good as well. So again, a lot of this is... I did wait till we had the group stage of Koa to see how some of these hunters would perform. And Anne is good because Anne is a good draw hunter on small maps like Red Church and Arms Factory. You can just use Detention and Blink. You can get your kill. You can catch someone, get a hit that way, and then just blink them for a second hit to get them down that way. And then in the end game, just blink someone with Detention and get your tie. And ties are good. He's a very good tie hunter. She's a very good tie hunter, but she does struggle against support as well, and in the meta being very support-sided with, Entomologist can be very strong against her. Forward is good against her when helping someone kite. If you use Forward to harass, it's not going to work because you can just cat the Forward, cancel his ability, or just stun him and he can't harass. But Forward's good when the Ann goes for a cat on a survivor and the Forward's in the vicinity, he can stun the Ann before they jump and the survivor can make enough distance to get away and cut out the cat. So that's why Forward can be good against her as well. And Batter as well can also work. But Anne's just, she has pretty good chase and she has good camp with the cats as well. Doesn't have much cypher control. She can cat survivors and cancel it to prevent them decoding for a few seconds, which isn't bad. But overall, that's not too strong because survivors can just die away from cypher machines. So overall, yeah, she has pretty good chase, pretty good camp, not the best cypher control, and that's what just makes her a standard A tier hunter, but a good draw hunter nonetheless. The next hunter in A tier is Nayad. Now, Nayad's a very fun hunter, and she's also very good on some maps and in some instances. She's good late rounds in tournaments as well, and she's also good in rank. She has it's not much to say about Nayad as well. She has good chase in that she can loop an area with water, force the survivor to leave, and while they're running away to get out of the water, she can just get a free hit and then just get a blink hit right after to get a 60-second down. The biggest problem with Nayad is any character that can take up to 3 hits can be a headache for her because they can force a lot of extra hits, and that can be kind of a problem. Also, characters that are good at transition kiting can be a headache for her, such as Patient. Patient's very good against her because you can hook away. You leave the water area so you don't get watered, but then the Nayad goes for a hit, you just hook away, and you prevent yourself from getting hit. So Patient can be good against her as well. Her camp is not very good until you get full presence. because then I think it's 30, if I'm not mistaken, it's 30% when you pull back the trident, a survivor is in it, they get 30% added to them. And then it's 50 at full presence, I think is how that goes, off the top of my head. I have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. So then when the biggest thing with her, again, is if you can dash a survivor to add water to them, so that's pretty good. So you can stuff a rescue that way. But again, the 30% usually isn't enough to stuff a save. So it usually comes down to, it's also a little bit luck-based, because Nayad swing is very fast, so it's hard to avoid it. So you can sometimes get lucky terror shocks. But again, yeah, the biggest thing with Nayad is just that full presence camp can be very strong for her. And she also has pretty good map pressure. She's very fast. She can get around the map very quickly, and she can also water down cipher machines, so survivors have to wait for the water to disappear before they can decode. So, yeah, I mean, her chase is pretty good. Her camp is pretty good when she has full presence, and her cyber control is just pretty good. And she has pretty good map pressure, and it's nothing like super strong, but it is good. It's solid, and that's what makes her a solid A-tier hunter. The next hunter in A tier is Soul Weaver. Now, Soul Weaver has been picked up more in tournament gameplay, mainly because of Chinatown. Chinatown is very good for Weaver because a lot of the looping areas, like the hotel area, the upstairs two-story area, for those of you who know the call-outs, hotel is what we like to call it. But any of like the upstairs looping areas that you can go on in Chinatown, Soul Weaver just counters it because it's so narrow. She can drop so many webs very quickly and catch up to survivors. There's also, if you notice, there's also a lot of random poles, like just like poles, like a street post, a street light pole or whatever. I don't even know, just on Chinatown, and you can put a web between that and a wall, and you can catch up to survivors and not use a lot of webs because it's a very narrow area. So that's actually something else. It's funny, but it actually works for Soul Weaver. So Soul Weaver is very good in Chinatown, and then she's good on some other maps. Like she's pretty good on Sacred Heart Hospital. She's pretty good on like Red Church, but she's very good on Chinatown, and that's what why she's found herself an A-tier spot. Her chase is pretty good when she has those webs build up. She has good camp if you can put yourself in a position. If you web shot someone and reach full presence as you're hitting them with the web shot, then it'll give you your web shot back. So you can get a second web shot and then hit someone. You can stuff a rescue that way. You can also chip survivors with the web shot and hit them. You can also get quick attack recovery if you have a bunch of webs stacked up. She has faster attack recovery if she's running through webs. So sometimes you can you can hit someone with quick attack recovery and hit them again to get a double hit because she's very fast. So yeah, she doesn't really have any cipher control, and that's what kind of makes her a tie hunter. But she does have good chase and pretty good camp, and she also has win potential. Now that there's 3 survivors left, and they pop the last cipher, if she stacks up her webs enough, she can instantly drop a bunch of webs, kill someone, and then like cocoon them or something, and then teleport in the exit gate before it's open, and clutch out a three-person elimination in a situation where you normally would only get a draw. So that's what makes her an A-tier hunter. She does have some win potential, and she's also very good in Chinatown, which is a very common map right now in the competitive scene for IDV. So yeah, Soul Weaver, A-tier hunter. The next hunter in A-tier is Axeboy. Now Axeboy has seen some play over in China. He's seen some play here. He's seen some play in Japan. Axeboy is a good hunter if you're kind of in a do or die situation where you need to get a lot of kills. And he's also kind of a draw hunter, but he can also push for wins because the reason why is Axeboy has good chase, good camp, and good cipher control. He has good with everything. Similar to Nayad, but his is also a little bit stronger than hers. Whereas, with those flames, if you're able to dodge a flame, Axeboy gets such a fast speed boost, you're usually still able to get a basic hit anyways. So as a survivor team, you want to make sure you're forcing basic hits, so he's still able to get a hit anyways. On top of that, he can sometimes stuff rescues with if he's able to pull a flame and land it on a survivor. Good survivors can usually dodge them, but sometimes Axeboy can get a close flame and stuff a rescue that way, so who knows. And also he can pressure cipher as well because he can use those paths, the restless road, to get around the map quickly. You can also chair survivors easily on other people's cipher machines by using the road to get pick up a survivor on balloons, put out a road, pick up the survivor, and then drag them all the way to cipher machine because of how fast you are, and share them on a cipher. So that can be pretty good as well. Also, once he reaches the full presence, very strong chase because survivors get slowed down. You have your purple flames, which can be very good as well. So yeah, overall, Axeboy has good chase, good camp, good cipher control. So he has the 3 elements that make him a good hunter, but they're all just sort of good. They're not like great, but they are good. And he's very good in certain situations as well. The biggest problem, he does get countered by entomologists very hard. But besides that, still a very viable hunter. Very good in rank and strong in certain situations in tournaments as well. And that's what makes him the best hunter in A tier. Now moving on to the last two tiers. The first hunter in our next tier is Bonbon. And Bonbon is another very good draw hunter. And the reason why is Bonbon has good chase with those bombs. They're very hard to dodge if you get an instant chain with them. It can be very, very strong. It's hard for survivors to dodge. And he also has the best camp in the game. So Bonbon, the main plan with Bonbon is basically try to get a kill with your blink and your bombs. And then just prevent the survivors from rescuing by having very strong camp, and then get a kill again later in the end game to get a draw. It's just that simple. And that's why in rank, Bonbon's not quite as good. The only way Bonbons really win in rank if survivors go for a rescue and you're able to stuff rescues. So in rank, if you want to just get a draw as a survivor team, just take the draw. Just don't rescue the person off the bomb, because Bonbon doesn't really have cipher control. His only means of cipher control is to throw bombs at nearby ciphers. He can also throw his control bomb, his remote bomb, on a cipher machine and force the survivor to run away from it, because if they decode, he can just ignite it and get a free chip. And sometimes, you know, if they leave it, then they have to go to a new cipher, which wastes time. So you can slow down ciphers that way, but it's usually still not enough for survivors to for the Bonbon to actually win. He's probably still going to draw. The only way he wins is if he stuffs rescues. So again, if you guys want to get a draw against a Bonbon, just don't rescue. But in tournament, getting draws is very good. Bonbon's a very good, consistent draw hunter, because you can just down people quickly with your bombs and your blink, prevent them from rescuing with your good camp, and then just kill someone again in the end game and get the draw. So that's what makes Bonbon an A+ tier hunter. He's a very consistent and good draw hunter. The next hunter in A+ tier is Geisha. We've started seeing a lot. Geisha's been used a lot in Koa. Geisha is a really good hunter right now. Geisha is really good. And it's actually kind of funny. A lot of people, when I put Geisha in A+ tier in one of my previous tier lists, I think a lot of people are kind of doubting. A lot of people are like, oh, Geisha's not so good. I don't know why you put her there. That's just wrong. I don't know what you're talking about. But Geisha, guys, Geisha's really good right now. If you guys watch Koa, you'll see that Geisha is one of the more commonly used hunters, believe it or not. Okay, it's because Geisha has good chase, and that her cooldown for her dashes is so short. It's like 8 seconds. You get your dash back so fast. And if you bring Blink on Geisha, you can easily get draws, because you can hit someone within 60 seconds and then just blink them to get a guaranteed 60-second kill. If you want to play more aggressively as well, you can also bring Teleport. But a lot of Geishas will bring Blink just because it's safer and more suitable for getting draws. She's also very strong on Moonlit River Park. Very strong on Moonlit. If you want to play aggressive as well and more for cyber control, you can just play Abnormal on Geisha. She's so versatile. You can go Teleport for good map pressure. You can go Abnormal for good cyber control. You can go Blink for draw consistency. She has so much versatility, and that's what makes her very, very strong. Again, good chase. Her camp, she doesn't really have much camp. You can sometimes get the drop hit and stuff for rescue that way, but good survivors usually won't fall for that, especially in high tiers and in a tournament setting. But still, she has good chase and then good map pressure, because she can dash around the map very quickly. And if you have Abnormal, then you can have very good cipher pressure as well. So Geisha is just very versatile. You can play her in map pressure with Teleport. You can play her in a cipher pressure, like a cipher, slow down cipher rush form with the Abnormal, or you can play a consistent draw build with Blink. She just has so many options going for her, and that's what makes her A+ tier hunter and one of the best later round tournament hunters and a very strong rank hunter. We actually ban Geisha a lot in top tiers in an AU server as well. So that's what makes Geisha an A+ tier hunter. The next hunter in A+ tier is Bloody Queen. Bloody Queen is the best draw hunter in the game. She is the best hunter for getting consistent draws. Because her mirror image is so incredibly hard. You can't really... Good Bloody Queens will not really miss mirrors. A lot of people ask, like, how do I kite Bloody Queen? I don't know how to kite her. Well, in reality, you can't. Bloody Queen's kind of an unkiteable hunter unless you're playing a counter to her, like Patient or Perfumer or something. But if you're just playing like a standard, like, Seer or Psychologist or something, you cannot really avoid mirrors. You're gonna take mirror hits. Good Bloody Queens won't really miss mirrors that much. So that's why Bloody Queen is such a good draw hunter. And the biggest issue why she's not a win hunter, you may ask, she has such good chase, why isn't she a win hunter? Well, her cooldown for mirrors is 15 seconds, which is very long. That's the biggest downside to her. But she's very consistent chase, and she has very consistent cipher pressure because she can mirror ciphers, push survivors off of ciphers that way. So it makes it so she doesn't get overly cipher rushed, but to a point where you're going to lose games as Bloody Queen. But for the most part, since she has really good chase, all you have to do as Bloody Queen is get it down with 2 mirrors, chair someone, and then get it down with detention and mirror in the end game to secure your draw. just arguably the best draw hunter in the game. Very consistent for getting draws. Yeah, she doesn't really have any camp, but she does have cipher pressure and map pressure with her mirrors, and she does have very good chase with her mirrors, and that's what makes her an A+ tier hunter. Okay, the last hunter in A+ tier actually moved down from S tier to A+ tier, and that is Sculptor. Sculptor used to be S tier, one of the best hunters in the game, and she did get that nerf where the statues take 0.2 seconds to relocate and hit a survivor, I think is what it is, instead of instantly, and it makes it so much easier survivors to dodge statues. And on top of that, survivors have just figured out how to kite her so effectively to a point where she's almost become a draw hunter. Still has better win potential than something like Bonbon, because she can actually pressure ciphers with the chisel, and then also can use the full presence statues to sometimes down survivors with the chisel, but it's so much harder. But yeah, overall, Sculptor's chase is not bad. You know, the statues are good. You know, you can put them at windows and pallets, block off kiting routes if you get those chips, and that's very strong. A lot of good survivors will just kind of double back into the Sculptor and let them basic hit them so they can't get statued. And it's usually, survivors usually able to draw from that position. But, you know, Sculptor also has good camp. She can cancel the rescue animation with her statues, and she can also use the chisel to slow down Cypher. So she has, to a degree, has some Cypher control and map pressure. She can sometimes snipe survivors with full presence statues from across the map as well, although it is less likely because of that nerf to the full presence statues. But yeah, overall, Sculptor has good chase, good camp, and good Cypher pressure. And because she has, and it's just stronger, she actually has, let's put it this way, she has good chase without full presence. She has strong camp overall, and she has good Cypher pressure. But then once she has full presence, she has like really good chase, and then, you know, stronger Cypher pressure, and then really good camp. And that's what kind of excels her over something like Axe Boy, and that's what makes her A+. Her not quite S tier because she's more of a draw hunter than she used to be, but still has a lot of win potential, but also has more draw potential than she used to have. But yeah, overall A+ tier hunter, very solid. And a good rank and a very good tournament hunter as well. Best hunter in A+ tier. Okay, moving on to our last two hunters. Last two hunters in S tier. Well, the only two hunters in S tier. And the first hunter in S tier is Breaking Wheel. Now, Breaking Wheel is, as you guys know, very, very strong hunter. A Breaking Wheel with good controls is just so hard to play against. We see Breaking Wheel being one of the most common kind of a staple character, one of the most round one used characters in pretty much every tournament situation if it's a good wheel map. So if you have Ever Sleeping Town, Chinatown, Moonlit River Park, you see Breaking Wheel getting utilized on those maps early on. So Breaking Wheel, very, very strong. You know, he has the ability to instantly down someone. If you go ahead, you know, you can go get 2 spikes on them, trap them. You can get them down with 1 kill, very strong. Another strategy is a lot of hunters will go for 1 spike, and then they'll get out of wheel form, try to trap them, get the one hit on them there. And then because you have insolence, then you have your extended spikes. So then you go back into wheel form, spike them again, and just snap them for the kill that way. You can get a pretty easy kill in that way, right? So that works well. Works as well. And you also have Blink, which is very good for getting downs. So Breaking Wheel has very strong chase, very good map pressure as well. He gets around the map very, very quickly. I mean, he can get one end. He can get from one end to the Moonlit River Park to the other end in like 5 seconds or something. It's literally ridiculous. It's actually crazy how strong his map pressure is and how good his mobility is. His camp can be decent in that if you drop traps, you can sometimes force a rescue after half, which can be pretty good. And then also, if you have full presence, that's when his camp becomes even stronger, because then you can get a spike on someone, get out, hit them with the full presence, and then you can stuff the rescue that way, and that can be very, very good as well. Now, the biggest problem with Breaking Wheel is he takes skill to learn the controls as well, and he does get countered by windows. So there's some maps that's very hard to play Breaking Wheel effectively on, such as Arms Factory, Red Church. It can be very difficult because there's a lot of very strong windows, like the Church windows, Factory windows, and Arms Factory. And that can be the biggest problem with this. So maps with limited windows, again, such as Ever Sleeping Town, Chinatown, and Moonlit River Park, are very good for him. But yeah, Breaking Wheel just has very, very good chase, insane map pressure, insane mobility, and one of the best 4-kill potential hunters in the game currently, besides Dreamwitch. He's just so strong, and that's what makes him an S-tier hunter. The biggest problem with Breaking Wheel is that he's very fragile. He struggles against harassment characters like Batter and Forward, but you could even just bring Excitement if you don't want to have to deal with that as well. So that works as well for Breaking Wheel. Okay, moving on to the last hunter in S tier, which is Dreamwitch. Dreamwitch still being the best hunter in the game. Again, Dreamwitch is just incredible. Dreamwitch has the best 4-kill potential in the game. You see Dreamwitch getting more 4 kills over in the China region more than like pretty much every hunter, even more than Breaking Will players. You know, if you look at hunters like XC, look at hunters like on ACT, they just have incredible map pressure with their Dream Witch, very good shape. Again, Dream Witch, the biggest problem with Dream Witch, or the biggest problem with going against Dream Witch is that it's hard to kite and that you can waste a pretty good amount of time, but they just double patroller you. They just patrol you with the spawn follower, patroller you with main body, and then just get the down in that way. And then you can also use your leeches to pressure Cypher machines very easily. And it's just the amount of map pressure Dream Witch has is just so good and so hard for hunters to deal with. So yeah, so Dream Witch, very good map pressure, very good Cypher control. You know, again, Survivor, it's just so hard to beat a Dream Witch because you get double patrollered, and then, you know, they rescue someone off chair, okay, you know, and then they'll leech the person that rescued. And since they hit that person that was leeched, they have to de-leech before they can go back to decoding, which means that you're losing Cypher progress. If you're de-leeching with somebody else, sure, you de-leech quickly, but, you know, that person's not decoding, you're not decoding, the person who's dead going down isn't decoding. So you have one person decoding, the fourth survivor, and the Cypher should just slow down significantly. On top of that, if you die anywhere near a Cypher machine, they'll use the leech of the person on share to pressure that Cypher and just have the main spawn camp the share. It's just that simple, and Dream Witch can just pressure those Cyphers, so she can be in multiple places at once, which makes her so strong. If they have one Cypher remaining, okay, who cares? You're just going to drop the spawn follower on the last Cypher and just let it sit there. You know, and then what can the survivors do? They have to leave and start a new Cypher machine. So, yeah, so that's the thing with Dream Witch, is that her Cypher control is so strong. And then again, if you start to get kited on a rebound kite, you can just trade swap from controller into blink and just blink someone like that and kill them just instantly, and they can't do anything and they're dead. And if you at any point you double hit a rescuer, you just leech the rescuer, the leech will follow them, and you can double chair. You can chair two people at once and then camp both chairs at once with both followers, and then continue to pressure Cyphers all at the same time. It's just insane. Dream Witch has the best map pressure, the best like win potential out of all the hunters right now, the best 4K potential. She's just such a strong hunter. She's the best character in the game currently. She's very difficult to master, but once you master her, she's incredibly strong and incredibly hard for survivors to beat. And that's what makes her the best hunter in the game, the best rank hunter, and the best tournament hunter as well. And yeah, so that's going to wrap it up for the Season 20 tier list, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out Koa this weekend. We'll be commentating with my fellow commentators as well. It's going to be very exciting, very fun matches, the top 12 for that. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. You guys are awesome, and I will see you all in the next one.